Hello everyone and Happy New Year! Welcome to our CFS special for New Year's Day. So last year it was the same thing. We looked at the CFS model for the next 10 months in detail on New Year's Day. So we're doing that same thing today. Now bear in mind, obviously, beyond about January 8th, this is totally unreliable. So it's for fun, for New Year's Day, and hopefully you're having a great day today. New Year's Day, start of New Year 2024. So, starting off on New Year's Day then. So we have a brief ridge over us, but that won't last. We're often running into water pressure for the week. Very wet and showery with that. A bit cooler by week's end with a more of a northerly flow. Then blocking rises towards Greenland, and we pull in a cold spell next week. Interesting from the CFS. Next one, and then we go off into the rest of the week here, and off we go into cold spell stays until about January 14th. Then it goes away as these deep lows to our west come in, and then it's mild, wet, windy into mid-January. Beyond that, we see a very mild, long fetch southwesterly wind with a lot of rain with that. A bit cooler for possibly around the 19th. Then we go into more long fetched southwesterly winds, very mild and wet as well. It keeps going into month's ends with actually towards February we see a slight cold spell at the end of January, and that brings some showers in from the east, some possibly wintry. Now February, on very interesting notes, we have a blocking towards the east, but we also have low pressure coming in from the south, so possibly wintry with that. But I think it's getting a bit milder as these days go along. And yeah, the mild day comes through by about the 4th of February. Then we're off into more wet, windy, and southern weather, with the deep lows coming in from the west, and strong winds, heavy rain, and mild weather as well. Deep lows to the north, highs to the south. PV is very strong here. It keeps going into February, really. No break. So this February may be a washout if this is correct. And very mild too. Look at that long fetch southwesterly on the 18th there. Very mild. And then more westerly winds, high to the south, low to the north. Doesn't stop. It keeps raining. A bit colder by month's end possibly, as that deep trough goes towards Scandinavia and pulls down a northerly wind, possibly. Yeah, it keeps actually cold by the end of February with northerly winds. Brief one. Then the high pressure comes over us, bringing a frosty spell in early March. We're into spring now. So, here we go. Spring starts frosty. Then going further into March, we can see that back come the westerly winds. It goes mild and actually still dry though. The high is quite close to us, but getting milder too, possibly a bit spring-like. Then we go into mid-March and we see a dry month in general, probably with frosty nights here. We go, and then after that we see deep low coming in from the west around the 19th of March. That brings heavy rain and strong winds. Towards the end of March we see a ridge to our south. That brings dry weather and quite mild weather too, winds in from the west. Into early April now, soon. Oh, but at the end of March we see a cold spell from the north. Now, and that cold spell lasts into the end of March, start of April. Then start of April sees westerly winds returning. Quite cool though with that, with a bit of a northwesterly tilt here. We keep going and heights rise to our east, pulling in the easterly wind. Now this one is quite cold. Sometimes in spring easterlies are mild, but this one does look quite chilly. Until around the 14th of April, then it gets less cold. Okay, cold air comes southwards by April 18th, as deep lows to the east and south, combined with blocking to our west and north. Portland is very cold. Northeasterly wind briefly, before it's cut off as these areas of low pressure do end up coming in from the south, so it's getting milder and wetter then. By month's end, we see actually quite a cold and wet pattern here, with deep lows coming in, and they are south and they are south shifted, meaning that we've got this colder, meaning that we're on the cold side of the lows into early May now. So let's see how that works out into early May. So with easterly winds here, low to south, hard to north. That's mild enough with quite a bit of rain at times. My birthday, actually quite a nice day. A break from all the wet weather with a transient ridge coming through. But by the 5th of May, we're looking wet again. The ridge is actually, holding its ground though. But in the end, it breaks down and we're into more wet weather as well. Notice that blocking is to our north, and that is never a good sign in the summer months for warm weather, because that keeps the low pressures right over us. Okay, so that is a very good example of that. You see blocking to our west and north, and the low just sits over us for days and ends, and we go cold, cooler cold by month's ends. Look at that. So it's quite now end of May. We see a warmer easterly wind pushing in into early June now, start of summer. Okay, so again, blocking to our north, deep low right over us. Very showery, very cool and wet start to June. Not much improvement really. We're going towards mid-June now. The low is to our west. A bit warmer then, as we do pull up a southerly wind, but still quite wet. And then into the second half of June, it stays wet and westerly. Any break coming up? It tries to get a bit warmer and drier around the 24th of June, but that is quickly swept away from the west by low pressure. Into towards July now, a bit better now. We've got the Azores like closer to us in July. Start of July anyway. Yeah, so it was cooler by the 3rd of July. Quite a poor summer here. By around July 7th, we've got the high over us, so it's getting warmer and drier here, and sunnier. Oh, but that's not like a long-lasting thing. We're back to low pressure by the 10th of July. We keep going. We try and get a warm spell again on the 14th. Highs to the east, lows to the west. But the low winds. You can see blocking is to our north and west, and that is keeping the low pressure either over us or near us. Let's see what next week is showing here. Quite a cool northerly flow even towards the 20th of July. This is ridiculous. Then the high pressure goes back to our south, but still we've got the influence from the west, so it's still wet but warmer. Getting towards the end of July now. Look at that. High to the south, low to the north, westerly. A bit drier in the south, but wet in the north. Strong blocking towards Greenland in early August. A trough right over us. Yeah. Bear in mind, obviously, it's just 8 months out now, so probably not, right? It's quite a bad summer we're seeing here. So by August 10th, we're seeing finally something drier and warmer from the south. Will it last? Will it last? No. Low pressure breaks through. But again, we try and get some hot weather going. That could be quite hot and thundery for a time there, actually. And actually, towards the end of August, we see a more proper build of high pressure for a time. So that does bring a warm and dry spell for a time. But then it doesn't last towards the 25th of August. But that's a good spell of warm and dry weather, has to be said. I think August is, from this run, the best month of the summer. But again, cold wind from the north again by the end of August. And heights come back over us for a time. So August, quite decent actually. Especially around the middle to 25th of August. Now, starting off September. Oh, I mean, high to the south, low to the north, westerly, but dry and quite warm. What happens here? Okay, so the pressure is breaking down, and we get low pressure forming right over us, blocking to the north, and that brings in quite a bit of chilly easterly winds. Very wet as well. Very wet start to September here. Off we go. Right, so heights rising towards Scandinavia by the 18th or 19th. By the 18th or 19th, That brings a drier spell to us, but soon after that we see Wester's return, so it's mild and wet all over again. No, is there a break? Yes, there is. Towards the end of the month we see a proper build of high pressure right over us. That brings warmer and dry weather as well. Now, we're coming into October here, so we start off looking quite warmer, mild, and showery. Quite a dryish start here, actually, though. Drier than the rest of the year, but not to last. By the 10th, we've got another push of northerners. Then the heights are over us again, so a bit of a drier signal for the autumn, especially October here. But September is quite wet, with dry spells. Then more low pressure comes through. And right towards the very end of October, we've got quite mild weather and also wet weather too. I say October here is definitely quite mild here. Wet as well at times, but also some dry spells. So, I mean, that was a pretty average CFS run. It didn't really go for anything, like, extreme. Apart from rainfall, probably. So, January and February had a few cold snaps in there, but, you know, as a rule, it was quite mild and wet. Into spring, generally quite changeable. Nothing too warm, too cold. I think April was quite cool, though, and wet as well. The summer was quite disappointing, especially June and July. August had some heat wave, warmer spell potential. Then September had some dry spells as well, but still quite wet. And then October was a mix of weather, really. So thanks for watching. Happy New Year, and I'll see you later on.